Why didn't you text back? Where were you last night? What did you mean by that? I need to understand your decision. They're not asking, they're demanding. And you've been trained to answer, to justify, to explain until they're satisfied, until they approve. But what happens when you stop? When you simply say no without a dissertation? When you make choices without committee approval? They panic. And that panic reveals everything. When was the last time you gave a reason you didn't believe, just to avoid conflict? Yesterday? An hour ago? Right now? Are you preparing explanations for choices you haven't even made yet? Your explanations have become their oxygen. Your justifications, their food supply. Every time you defend your choices, you feed a machine that runs on your need for approval. Picture yourself in a courtroom. You're always the defendant. They're always the prosecutor. And somehow, you're guilty until proven reasonable. But here's what they don't want you to know. The person who demands explanations for everything isn't interested in understanding. They're interested in control. And your explanations are the remote control they use to steer your life. Tonight, I'm exposing the hidden psychology of explanation addiction. Why certain people need you to justify everything, and why your silence terrifies them more than your anger ever could. We'll uncover why "because I want to" sends them into crisis mode, why your unexplained choices feel like betrayal, and how to reclaim the power of your own authority. Part 1. The explanation economy, the interrogation disguised as care. It starts innocently. I'm just trying to understand. I only want what's best for you. Help me see your perspective. But watch the pattern. They're not seeking understanding. They're seeking ammunition. Every explanation you give becomes data for their control algorithm. Pause. Think of that person who always needs to know why. Feel how exhausting it is. Real scenario: you decide to change jobs. Instead of "congratulations," you get a tribunal. But why now? What about security? Have you thought this through? I need you to explain the logic. 20 questions later, you're defending a decision you were excited about 5 minutes ago. They've turned your life into a courtroom where you're always the defendant. And they've appointed themselves judge, jury, and prosecutor. The justification trap. Here's the insidious part. The more you explain, the more they expect explanations. It's like feeding a stray cat. Do it once, and they'll be at your door every day expecting more. You've trained them that your choices are up for debate, that your decisions require approval, that your autonomy comes with an asterisk, pending satisfactory explanation. Here's the dark comedy. You need their permission to not need their permission. It's like asking someone if it's okay to stop asking if everything's okay. Watch what happens in conversations. You. I'm going to start painting. Them. But why? You've never painted before? What's the point? Isn't it expensive? When will you have time? You. Explains for 20 minutes. Them. I still don't get it. You just auditioned for your own life, and they're still not convinced you deserve the part. The power dynamic. Every explanation is a power transfer. When you justify, you're essentially saying, you have the right to evaluate my choices. Your approval matters more than my autonomy. Think about it. Does your boss explain why they're taking vacation? Does the CEO justify every decision to the intern? True authority doesn't defend itself. It simply acts. Stop. When was the last time you made a decision without explaining it to anyone? Can't remember? That's the problem. But in your relationships, you've inverted the hierarchy. You've given everyone voting rights on your life. You've turned existence into a democracy where you only get one vote. The emotional labor factory. Explaining is exhausting. It's emotional labor you're not getting paid for. Every justification requires translating your feelings into logic, anticipating their objections, managing their emotions about your choices, defending against their projections, convincing them you're competent. Picture yourself walking around with footnotes stapled to your clothing, every choice annotated, every decision with bibliography attached. That's how you're living, like a human dissertation that needs peer review for every paragraph. Real example, you decide to cut your hair. Suddenly, you're explaining psychology, personal growth, the symbolism of change, and why this doesn't mean you're having a breakdown. For a haircut. Quick check. How many hours this week did you spend explaining yourself? Those hours? That's your life leaking away. The approval addiction. Here's what happened. Somewhere along the way, you got addicted to understanding, to being seen as reasonable, to having your choices validated. And like any dealer, they're happy to supply your fix for a price. The price? Your sovereignty, your spontaneity, your right to be gloriously, unapologetically unreasonable. You've become so good at explaining yourself that you've forgotten you don't owe anyone an explanation. Your "because I want to" got buried under an avalanche of "because it makes sense when you consider." The false intimacy. They'll frame their interrogation as intimacy. I just want to know everything about you. Couples share everything. Real friends don't have secrets. But forced transparency isn't intimacy. It's invasion. Real intimacy is choosing to share, not being obligated to report. It's voluntary vulnerability, not mandatory exposure. Here's a painful truth. How many of your relationships would survive if you stopped explaining yourself? That number tells you how many are based on control, not connection. So you see the game. The explanation economy, where your justifications are currency and their approval is the product you're buying. But why do they need this? Why does your silence create such panic? Because your explanations aren't just words. They're the chains that keep you controllable. And when you stop explaining, you start escaping. Part 2. The psychology of control. The prediction addiction. Controllers need to predict you. Your explanations give them the data to build models of your behavior, to anticipate your moves, to prepare their responses. When you stop explaining, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability is terrifying to someone who needs control. Think about it. Every explanation you've given has taught them your triggers, your fears, your decision-making process, your weak points, your values hierarchy. You've been handing them the user manual to your psyche. And now you're changing the password. The manipulation map. Your explanations create a manipulation map. Every justification reveals what arguments work on you, what guilt trips are effective, what fears can be activated, what dreams can be discouraged, what boundaries are negotiable. Real scenario. You explain why you need space. They file away. She feels guilty about being selfish. I can use that. Next time, they frame their intrusion as, I'm just worried you're isolating yourself. Breathe. Feel that recognition? That's years of your explanations being weaponized against you. You thought you were building understanding. You were building their arsenal. The anxiety of the unknown. When you stop explaining, you trigger their deepest fear. Irrelevance. If they can't predict you, they can't control you. If they can't control you, they don't matter. If they don't matter, who are they? Watch their escalation when you go silent. First, confusion. I don't understand. Then, persistence. Just tell me why. Then, anger. You're being secretive. Then, guilt. I thought we were closer than this. Finally, panic. You've changed. Each escalation is an admission. They need your explanations more than they need your happiness. The identity crisis. For many controllers, their identity is built on being needed. The advisor, the protector, the one who knows best. Your explanations feed this identity. You're not just explaining your choices, you're validating their existence. When you stop explaining, you're not just taking back power. You're threatening their entire self-concept. If you don't need their approval, their guidance, their permission, what's their purpose? Here's the brutal truth. Their panic isn't about losing you. It's about losing their role in your life. The childhood echo. This dynamic often echoes childhood. Maybe you had to explain everything to an anxious parent, justify every feeling to avoid conflict, prove every decision was logical to be taken seriously. You learned unexplained choices equal danger. Silence equals withdrawal of love. Autonomy equals abandonment. So now, as an adult, you compulsively explain. You've internalized the interrogator. You justify choices even when no one's asking. You prepare defenses for decisions no one's attacking. Stop right now. Who are you preparing to explain yourself to, even when you're alone? That's the voice you need to silence. The cultural programming. Society reinforces explanation addiction. We're taught communication is key, but not boundaries. Openness builds trust, but not sovereignty. Good relationships have no secrets, but not privacy. We've confused explanation with communication, justification with intimacy, transparency with trust. But real trust doesn't require constant proof. Real intimacy doesn't demand total access. If you're recognizing every relationship where you're the defendant and they're the judge, you're ready for what's coming. Subscribe, because we're about to flip the entire dynamic. Part 3. The Power of Silence. The Revolutionary Act. No is a complete sentence. Because I want to is a valid reason. I've decided needs no suffix. But using these phrases feels like revolution, because it is. Every unexplained decision is a declaration of independence. Every unjustified choice is a reclamation of sovereignty. Every silent boundary is a scream of selfhood. Start small. I can't make it. Period. No excuse. I've changed my mind. Full stop. No elaboration. That doesn't work for me. End. No alternatives offered. Watch their reaction. That discomfort? That's the sound of chains breaking. The strategic silence. Silence isn't absence. It's presence. Your unexplained decisions force them to sit with their own discomfort instead of making it your problem. Real example. They text, "Why didn't you come to dinner?" You respond, "Couldn't make it." They push, "But why?" You, "Hope you had fun." Feel that anxiety about being rude? That's your programming. You're not rude. You're sovereign. You've just refused to play explanation tennis. The ball's in their court, and they have to decide. Accept your autonomy or reveal their control needs. The panic patterns. When you stop explaining, watch for these panic patterns. The guilt bombardment. I guess I don't matter. Sorry for caring. Fine, shut me out. Translation. Your autonomy hurts my ego. The concern, performance. I'm worried about you. This isn't like you. Are you okay? Translation. Your unpredictability scares me. The relationship, threats. Is this how it's going to be now? Maybe we need space. I can't be with someone secretive. Translation. Submit, or I'll punish you. Each pattern is a manipulation tactic disguised as emotion. Don't take the bait. The boundary scripts. Have these ready. I appreciate your concern. My decision is made. I understand you want details. I'm not sharing them. This isn't up for discussion. I've heard your input. I'm doing this anyway. You don't have to understand my choices. Practice these until they feel natural. Because the first time you use them, your voice will shake. That's normal. Power feels foreign when you've been powerless. The extinction burst. When you first stop explaining, they'll escalate dramatically. Picture a vending machine that's always given free snacks when shaken. Suddenly it requires payment. What happens? They shake harder, push more buttons, kick the sides, rock the whole machine back and forth. That's them when you stop explaining. The shaking will get violent before it stops. This is good. It means it's working. Their panic is proof of how much power your explanations gave them. Stay consistent. The extinction burst always ends. The relationship filter. Here's the gift of silence. It reveals who actually loves you versus who loves controlling you. People who respect you will adjust. Okay, I don't need to know everything. Your choice. Let me know if you want to talk. Controllers will escalate. You're hiding something. This is unhealthy. I have a right to know. Your silence becomes a sorting mechanism. It separates those who see you as sovereign from those who see you as territory. The new dynamic. When you stop explaining, something magical happens. You start choosing, not from defense, but from desire, not from justification, but from joy. Your choices become cleaner, clearer, more authentic. Because you're not filtering them through, how will I explain this? You're just choosing. And ironically, people respect unexplained choices more than justified ones. Power is attractive. Sovereignty is magnetic. A person who doesn't need approval becomes someone worth following. Part 4. The Severance. Your assignment. Choose one person who always demands explanations. This week, stop giving them. When they ask why, respond with action, not words. When they demand justification, offer decision, not defense. When they require reasons, give results, not rationale. Watch their panic. Feel your power. Notice how much energy returns when you stop leaking it through explanation. Because here's the truth that terrifies them. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your existence. Your choices don't require committee approval. Your life doesn't need footnotes. Every time you explain yourself unnecessarily, you're saying your own authority isn't enough. You're teaching people that your territory to be conquered, not a sovereign to be respected. They panic when you stop explaining because your silence reveals the truth. They never had legitimate power over you. Only the power you gave them through your words. Take your words back. Take your power back. Take your life back. The age of explanation is over. The era of decision begins now. If you're ready to stop auditioning for your own life, subscribe.